All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs in today's video because in just a couple of days, they're going to be trimming their roster to 53 players. Their preseason is officially over. Back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions, a little bit banged up. We saw Marquise Hollywood Brown, new addition, get banged up on the first play of preseason. But then, there's a lot of positives, right? Carson Steele looks like an absolute gem. Jaden Hicks in the fourth round, the safety, looks like an absolute gem. And then, I think Justin Ross is also about to make this roster. But at the same time, you got to cut the roster. And even though you're going to see, like, for example, I don't feel great about Nico Remigio making this roster. I don't feel great about Deneric Prince making this roster. Maybe even Irv Smith Jr. if they decide to go with an extra offensive lineman as opposed to 4 tight ends, although we do know Andy Reid loves 4 tight ends. So my point just is a couple of players that you don't want to get sent down to 53 men are about to get sent down to the practice squad. But the good news is you can still bring them up. But I do feel comfortable or hopeful with the wide receiver position because of, unfortunately, Hollywood Brown's injury. I think once again the Kansas City Chiefs will keep 7 wide receivers. I also don't really think Kadarius Toney is going to be on that list. But I do want to talk a little bit about preseason, specifically Jaden Hicks and Carson Steele, these 2 rookies. Jaden Hicks, 4th round dude, and then Carson Steele, the undrafted free agent at fullback, who showed us he can do a little bit of everything. So welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you are new here, and let me know, of course, down below your thoughts on the 53-man roster. It's crazy how deep this Kansas City Chiefs team is. I had not covered the Chiefs in a summer this closely before, and it's just crazy, man. Every day at training camp, every day at practice, every preseason game, you're watching these kids and you're watching all of these guys like undrafted free agent Carson Steele make names for themselves right out of the gate, and you're thinking to yourself, this is the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. How on earth are they this deep of a roster? So let's get right into it, because Carson Steele was maybe the biggest winner of the entire preseason for the Kansas City Chiefs team. Once again, I'm sure you guys heard it if you watched any of the preseason games, this is an undrafted free agent. This is an undrafted free agent at the fullback position in Carson Steele. So Carson Steele this preseason, because he's a lock to make this roster, 11 carries, 87 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 first downs, 81 yards after contact, folks. 81 yards out of 87 rushing yards, 9 missed tackles forced. He even returned a couple of kicks. You can't take this guy down. Wherever you think Carson Steele is about to get wrapped up, let's say he's rushing, it's 1st and 10, he gets hit, 2 yards in, it's, looks like it might be a 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7. Add like 3 or 4 yards to that, because that's where Carson Steele is ultimately gonna get tackled. He led the Kansas City Chiefs with 29 rushing yards on 4 attempts and broke a multitude of tackles in the first preseason game against Jacksonville. Then the next week demonstrated great receiving skills, showed us his blocking ability, and then in the preseason finale against the Chicago Bears, he was just like the biggest winner. 50 rushing yards on only 4 attempts, including a 1-yard touchdown. Pretty much had the touchdown the play before that. I should have it right here ready to go. I think it was like a 32-yard rush. Of course, we got to scroll. Apologies. It was a 31-yard rush. But he finished 4 carries, 50 yards, and then that 1-yard touchdown rush. But he demonstrated big-time playability right there. He is so unbelievably versatile. Once again, we saw him in the return. We saw he's going to have a special teams impact. And he pretty much is going to be the reason, in my opinion, that Deneric Prince does not end up making this roster. And, it sucks because you have Pacheco, and Pacheco's the man. You have CEH. The Chiefs decide to not bring back Jerick McKinnon. Running back 3 was right there for Prince, and he just could not take control of it. I think he had like 3 rushes for -4 yards, 3 rushes for -3 yards, some negative stat line in the preseason finale against the Chicago Bears. And ultimately, due to Carson Steele's breakout, I just don't really think that Deneric Prince finds a way onto this roster. So let's move to the wide receiver room, because I was reading an article on arrowheadpride.com, and here were their projected wide receivers making the roster Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson. I think those four, they're going to be a lock, universal, not even close. All four of those receivers, regardless of preseason breakouts, preseason drop-offs, all four of those guys are going to make the roster. And then this article had Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, and Justin Ross making the roster. And here's where things get fun. Mecole Hardman, I don't know how he's going to get cut. I really don't. It's been an underwhelming last couple of seasons, whether it was with the Kansas City Chiefs or a team like the New York Jets. To me, Nico Remigio did not provide enough on returns for Mecole Hardman to lose his job. And I'll use the preseason finale as a good example here. So Nico Remigio took two kick returns, 2 returns for 71 yards, averaging 35 yards per return. His long was 42. But then Mecole Hardman also brought one back for 43 yards. He only had one return in the preseason finale against Chicago, but it was for 43 yards. So it was like, it sucked because Mecole would run one back from 35 to 40, and then Nico would do the same thing. But obviously, Mecole's been in the NFL for much longer. He's been with Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs for much longer. So ultimately, I don't think Remigio set himself apart in the receiving games or the special teams as opposed to a guy like Mecole Hardman for him to make this roster. Then we get a little bit deeper. I don't know what world Sky Moore gets cut. Yeah, I understand it's been a very underwhelming first couple of years with Kansas City Chiefs. Last year felt like it should have been his, kind of welcome to the NFL season, but it wasn't. But he's still on a rookie contract. Kansas City Chiefs, I think, still view him extremely high. He still does have some positive traits, obviously. I just don't see a world where Sky Moore gets cut. And then finally, you have wide receiver number 7. And this is where things get juicy because, to me, it's going to be between Kadarius Toney and Justin Ross. The thing Kadarius has for him is his contract. I also just saw a report, I think it was like the Saints and the Chargers were interested in Kadarius Toney if it gets cut. But what Justin Ross provides you is size. He's 6'4". He can catch a ball anywhere. He's a great red zone target, and he just gives the Kansas City Chiefs this unique big-time body in that wide receiver room. But you look at Kadarius Toney, this is a former first-round pick. He did not have a positive snap in the preseason until this past week against Chicago. He missed the game against the Jaguars with that back injury. And then his first snap against the Detroit Lions, he literally had 2 penalties in 1 freaking snap. So he's done everything wrong. He did have a couple of catches for like 14 yards, 2 catches, 14 yards against Chicago. My gut tells me Kadarius Toney is going to make it over Justin Ross, but logic tells me Justin Ross should make it over Kadarius Toney. I did want to talk about Jaden Hicks, but we're about to check out of this hotel in 12 minutes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. We got plenty of Chiefs content on the way for the upcoming season. Thank you for watching. Peace.